funniest gig I ever got was Colleen Rooney's Hen Night.
Okay, here we go. This is what we're here for, Asa.
Lost Penny Lane, football on the brain, a stew called Scouse, Lacoste, North Face or Berghaus. It's the Scouse House, it's the Scouse House.
You know what? I've got to say a big thanks to MH Studios for supporting the Scouse House. MH Studios is designed to cater to all your content creation needs. Is it photography? Is it videos? Is it podcasts? It doesn't matter because they can do it all at MH Studios. Get in touch, studio@mhstudios.co.uk. MH Studios. Welcome back to the Scouse House podcast, everybody. And look who I have with me. It's actor, singer, songwriter, author, Asa Murphy, everybody. Let's hear it.
To be here.
How are you, Asa?
I'm sound, yeah. Very happy to be here as well.
Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come in and hang out in the Scouse House. So we've got a few things to cover, and one thing in particular we want to talk about is Irish Annies, which is just the play that you just took all around the UK and internationally as well, over to Ireland.
Yeah, Southern Ireland,
Southern Ireland, the Republic of, and of course with one of the city's leading lights, Ricky Tomlinson was with Eddie Mitty's me in the room.
you might hear him.
and before we get there though, let's do what we always do on the Scouse House podcast, is go back to the start, the humble beginnings of Asa Murphy. Whereabouts in Liverpool, or indeed were you born in Liverpool?
I was, yeah. Oh yeah, very proud Scouser.
Because as an Asa Murphy, could you could be confused, couldn't you?
Could be an Irishman, yeah.
Certainly could, mate, yeah. But no.
Well, but I have very, very sort of proud Irish roots, but I was born in Kirkdale, next door to a pub called the Lee Arms, known as Lulu's. And the strange coincidence with the man Ricky Tomlinson we were talking about is that the pub that he was plastering when he first heard someone playing the banjo was the pub I was born next door to.
We may well have to ask Ricky about that.
That's the weirdest coincidence. We only found this out when we were chatting about it. He was plastering the ceiling and he heard a fella playing the banjo called George. He mentioned it when he was on the Scouse House. And I was born next door to that pub in a house that had the same party wall as the pub.
Right.
So for me, Ricky Tomlinson's next door plastering the ceiling. I'm next door, born in the house. So yeah, I'm a Scouser. Like we talked, I think you mentioned before about, I don't know what the sort of like parameters of what it is, but Kirkdale, I would say
it's not even up for debate, is it? Kirkdale is one of them.
Kirkdale and
Scouse.
Yeah.
Scouse as fuck. Let's
exactly.
Sorry.
I'll have to write that song. Scouse as fuck.
So Scouser, born and bred, but then clearly, as you say, proud Irish roots there. So was that which side of your family?
My father, and then when I was my father's dad's from Cork, and then when I was 19, my father moved back to Ireland, and I'm one of 7 children, and he took the 4 younger siblings back to Cork, to the south of Ireland. They were raised in Ireland, so very much mixed, but I've still got family there now. One of my brothers stayed there, married an Irish girl, and so my life's been spent very much between Kirkdale, Walton and the south of Ireland, really. So, and I think that's sort of true of everyone from Liverpool. We're very proud of that sort of that amalgamation of what Liverpool is about, the pool of talent.
It makes sense then, therefore, that your career just up until now anyway has reached the point of this play Irish Annies, which is obviously talking about or it's linked to the Irish connection there with Liverpool. I mean, my surname, of course, was Roach. I believe an Irish surname.
Very much so.
I actually know though. I haven't done BBC. If you want to get in touch with me at some point in the future and do the whole "who do you think you are?" Because I actually don't, and certainly grandparents don't think
it's a Southern Irish name.
Is it? Yeah. Well, I might have to get onto what is it, genealogy.com or whatever.
I think Scousers, when you go over to Ireland, are just accepted.
Yeah,
it's funny really because I know the whole English-Irish thing, but when you go over there, we have this thing with Scouse, not Irish, not English, and they love it. They're like, oh, you're accepted as soon as they hear your accent.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I always thought that about kind of the when we had the Grand National called off, and it was the IRA, and I thought, you're picking the wrong city.
Yeah, it's
surely.
it's a funny one, that
You
one.
know,
Yeah.
I could imagine making a call, going, "Fucking hell, these are English."
So we had a few bets on.
yeah. So let's stick though as a youngster there. You're obviously growing up in the city. Whereabouts did you go to school and
Well,
study
I
and stuff?
went to school at St George's at the top of Everton Brew.
Right.
There, and then for a while we moved to Bootle because there was 7 of us. We moved out of that house into a bigger house in Bootle.
Whereabouts in Bootle?
Hillside.
Okay.
So Oxford Road in Bootle. My dad bought a big house, and basically a derelict house, and we all had to work on it.
Do you know William Henry Street?
Yeah, I do it. Yeah,
That's where my dad.
Right, yeah, not
lived.
very well. So so I grew up in that area, went to school there. I left school, didn't do great because I wasn't an academic person, but I was always musical. And when I was a young lad, I saw a photograph of my dad playing a guitar. So, a bit like Ricky again, I said to him, look, can I have a guitar? Not realising how tight finances were, that the idea of buying a guitar just wasn't on the card. So we borrowed one off a mate. I learned the guitar, and then I got myself a paper round in all the streets in Bootle. Got battered several times. And I remember going to this fella's house, and he had, as I was looking through, I saw guitars in the house, and I went to him, oh, do you play the guitar? His name was Charlie Kinvig. And he went, yeah. He said, no, this sounds strange now, but it wasn't then. He went, come in and have a look. So I went in his house, and he had all these guitars on the wall. And I was like, how does somebody have all them, And he said, yeah, in fact, I'm selling that one there. And it was this beautiful guitar. It was a Hofner President. And I said, how much is it? He said, £80. And to me, that may have been 80 million. Yeah. You know what he said to me? I'll let you pay me off every week from your paper round money. And that's what he did. So every week I did my paper round. I'd go to Charlie's house, give him me money. And after about whatever it was, 16 weeks, I paid him and he gave me the guitar. So that was my first guitar. And I worked at it. And when I left school, I didn't go straight into the music industry because I'm not from that background, so I didn't know nothing about stage school. I didn't have those opportunities. So I went into normal work. I was a care worker for many years, but then I started gigging. And then the Echo did this story on me. I always remember it called the caring crooner. And it was about me doing care work in the day, looking after people with multiple sclerosis and different things like that, motor neuron disease. And I loved these people. And I used to talk to them about my gigs, and they were big supporters. And even after I went professional, a lot of the people, some have sadly passed away now, but a lot of people I cared for with certain sort of like illnesses that carried on following me. And then lo and behold, one day I found out about a club that was opening up in Liverpool called the Green Room, which was run by some fella called Ricky Tomlinson. And
we're just going to pipe in Ricky's laughter at points in this
great,
episode. He's not sat next to me.
Should be on prescription, that laugh.
So the Green Room then, and I remember when that came out, and that it's a bit of a throwback to kind of variety.
Very much so, yeah.
Which is a bit lost. I mean, I feel like it might be coming back. I'm going to try and do something as well about bringing variety back.
Good on you.
Because it's I get comedy nights, I get music and all the rest of it, but that little mixture of everything is just, there's a place for that, surely.
People love it. And what was great about the Green Room was I'd done my apprenticeship, by the way. I started off, and I'm a firm believer that every act should do his apprenticeship. You know this as a comedian, doing the rough pubs and clubs. First gig I ever did was in Crocky, was in a pub called The Lobster. Now I sing swing music. That's how I started. So I'm singing Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Bobby Darin, Tony Bennett. And I walked into this pub in Crocky called The Lobster, and I was setting my gear up, and these group of lads there sitting in all the black gear and all that, sitting off. And one of them says, what type of music are you doing, lad? And with that accent. That's and great. I'm born in Kirkdale, and I don't talk like, what type of music are you doing, lad? And I went, I do swing music, mate. And he went, what's that like? You're going to do a bit of Dire Straits and a bit of Pink Floyd? Like, no, mate, I sing like the summer wind came blowing in from across the sea. And Tony Bennett, and I thought, said to me mate, little Ken, who Ricky would tell you about, he's helped me out for years, said, we're going to get killed in here. The weirdest thing happened. I started doing my act, and this lad sidled over, and he went to me, hey, mate, do you know The Good Life by Tony Bennett? And I said, yeah, I do. It's a great song. He said, I love that song, mate. It reminds me of my granddad. Can you do it? I did that song, and these lads transformed into they knew all these songs. You know what it was? It was gangster movies.
Right.
Goodfellas, Casino. They knew every song I was singing.
Yeah.
Some fella shouted out "Rags to Riches" from Casino with killing that fella in the boot.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's how I started, and then I came along to the green room, got to know Ricky, went down to see him because my agent at the time rang up and wanted a ridiculous amount of money for me to perform there, and he said, they won't have you, and I said, I'm not having that. So I went down, had a cup of tea with Ricky. That's how I met him, and we became firm friends. Absolutely. Since then. He gave me break. He put me top of the bill on the Liverpool Empire, which was one of the best moments of my career, with me full band, and lots of other things as well. And so it's come right round to sort of him starring in Irish Annies.
Cool. And what was that jump like when you go from sort of, as you say, a very good job in terms of, importance for the community and etc., but then also you want to follow this more creative path into, let's face it, showbiz. That making that actual decision to go, I'm going to go for this. Then was that around that same time? Was it?
Yeah, it was difficult because I was married and my son was born, and so I'm stepping from a regular wage into something that mightn't come every week. And by the way, that happened. There was times when I was really struggling. There was times I missed my mortgage, and my wife was saying, this has got to stop. I had no gigs and stuff like that. I remember sitting in the back garden once with a bottle of whiskey, having a few whiskeys, thinking I've made the wrong decision here. I'm going to have to pack this in. But no, I was determined. And I stuck it out, and it just happened for me. It just happened. The swing music suddenly became popular. People like Harry Connick Jr. And all of a sudden, I was just out getting booked. And the agent at the time said, look, you don't have to pack your job in. You're too busy. And that's what happened. I went pro, and I've worked solidly ever since. 20 years of never being out of work and being professional.
It sounds like to me, because we talked, didn't we, just before we came on, and in the intro there about the acting, stage stuff, the author. But it sounds, just even you talking about the start of even when you're a kid going around seeing it sounds like music is really the thing that drew you into the business. And is that right? Is that fair?
100%. Music's always.
You see yourself as a musician?
Yeah. I think as well, being from a big family, one of 7 children, you're always trying to find that thing that's yours, that takes you away from, the things that are difficult. Because again, for my parents, financially, it was difficult. They must have struggled really badly looking back now. Music was my thing to take me away. So I'd go away with my guitar. And I always say with the musical instruments, it's just you and that. You know what I mean? And that's what was important for me. So yeah, it's always been the music. Starting off as a big band singer and progressing, doing the Empire, doing Ronnie Scott's in London, top of the bill. The funniest gig I ever got was Colleen Rooney's Hen Night.
Okay, here we go. This is what we're here for, Asa.
That's it.
Finally, we got there. Let's hear about Colleen's
mad.
hen.
It was in the Lowry.
Did you keep all your clothes on?
Just about, yeah. And we had the band there, and she said, look, all I want is everyone's having champagne. I want you to sing all the Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. We love it. And they were a bit wild, but they were great, But Colleen Wayne Rooney's mother was the funniest. So we're singing all these lovely swing songs, and they're all having a few sherbets, and it got a bit rowdy, and all of a sudden she just shouted out, Asa, do you know any drifters? In the middle of all these great swing songs. And I turned to the band and says, yeah, all
like
right.
being back in the Lobster.
Yeah. So next minute we're going, up on the roof, and yeah, and all this. It was.
So do you still know well then?
Yeah, obviously, yeah, like little, keeping in touch with what I've done.
Well, let her know. Let her know, Colleen, if you want to come on, and Wayne.
Colleen on the Scouse.
Come on the Scouse House.
Come on the Scouse.
Talk about Wagatha Christie, etc. If you want to. So yeah, well that and then you're talking there obviously about being the family and your big family, your thing, and if you talk about the wider Liverpool family, we call it the Music City, Liverpool Music City. So obviously there's plenty of if you're that way inclined, plenty of Liverpool artists and musicians, and let's face it, there's the one band that kind of, if you like, sits out there on top in terms of profile across the
Yeah.
world and stuff like that. Do you have all of those inspirations, or do you want to talk about one or two that are inspirations in Liverpool?
Obviously, yeah. You know, the writing of Lennon and McCartney is just always going to be there, isn't it? As regards, and the reason is, particularly for me, McCartney, it's always been melody. Everything I ever write, the first thing I have to have is melody, because if you don't have melody, the human ear just doesn't respond to it. I think McCartney was the greatest writer for melody, a Liverpool writer. And there's other great writers in Liverpool as well, of course, musically. But I think McCartney, there's a song I was listening to the other day, My Valentine, which is a song he wrote. And the melodies that man writes are just phenomenal. They're just beautiful. They really are. So yeah, that was a big inspiration. And obviously the Irish music I grew up with, because that was always on in the house. My father played a lot from the Fureys and Davy Arthur and Christy Moore, all those great writers. I grew up with all that stuff as well. So there was a sort of melting pot of Liverpool music and the likes of the Beatles, etc. My father's a huge country music fan. So there's a lot of Johnny Cash going on.
And that's
Hank
coming
Williams.
back quite a bit at the moment, isn't it?
Country? Massively so. And Rick's always been a big fan of country. In fact, the follow-up to Irish Annie I've nearly finished now. A bit of an exclusive.
Oh, we'll
for
talk
the
about
Scouse
that
House is a country music based story. It's called Country Dreamin', which will be out next year.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, you touched on Sir Paul a moment ago. There, he's in his early 80s now. He's just done a couple of years ago 3-hour set at Glastonbury, and you're thinking, wow, I was an 80-year-old performer at this top level. But there's another 80-odd-year-old Scouser that you've been working with on Irish Annies. We mentioned him before. He might be in the room. Ricky Tomlinson is you're working with Ricky. I mean, talk us through where Irish Annies came from. Yeah, and that maybe that link there with Liverpool in terms of why it works, and then you obviously took it on the road.
It started in the lockdown because obviously we were all out of work, so it was like, what are we going to do? So I'm a firm believer in not moaning about stuff. Don't moan. There's never any problems, just solutions. So for me, it was like, use this time. So what I did, I wrote a children's book, which basically saved me in the lockdown because it just went crazy. It sold that many copies, and that did really well for me.
What was that book called?
It was called The Monkey with No Bum.
Right.
And it was a story I used to tell my son. Ricky's kids have all got it, and grandchildren. And it was about kids having a positive view of themselves, not worrying about what's different about them. It ended up going that viral that I was invited around schools to talk to kids about the story. And then it was turned into a musical, which went on tour as well.
Right.
Where I wrote the songs for as well. But so I'd written that, and I thought, I had this idea about Irish Annies, so I locked myself away in my shed, because that's where to do my writing. I have a shed at the bottom of the garden.
Really?
I go in the shed, it's got an armchair and a heater.
Where are you based now, Barry?
In Mughal now. Right, so I live in where my wife's family are all from. So I'm in Mughal, and I go in the shed and I say to them, don't disturb me, because Ricky mentioned about Jimmy McGovern and writer's block. If you get writer's block, you're finished. So you've got to keep the juices going. So the last thing you need, my wife's a hairdresser, by the way. She's one of 8 children.
Wow.
So our house, as you can imagine, is bedlam all the time. She's a Scouser, yeah. Yeah, she was born in Walton.
You married in?
Navarro, her name. So, yeah, so it was. Yeah, I shut myself away, have a cup of tea, and I get going. And Irish Annies just came to me because I had this idea of something that was interactive. So in other words, you've got a live Irish band on stage, 5 characters who inhabit this pub with a moral story, every one of them. But the audience are also in the pub. They're in the lounge and they're watching. And that's how and I was thinking to myself, now there's an Irish tradition called a shocknessy. And a shocknessy is the fella in the pub who tells stories. And I thought, now who do I know never shuts up and can tell the best story you'll ever hear?
Yeah, he's co-starred on this podcast as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah. Ricky Tomo. So I rang him up and I said, listen, I've written this thing called Irish Annies, and there's a part in it which is the storyteller. And he comes in and regales the audience and the people in the lounge stories about his life. And they've got little moral stories as well. Any chance? And I thought he'd probably say, No, he's too busy because he's a busy man. He didn't. He said, I'd love to help you out. And that was the start of Irish Annie's. So we did the first couple of shows at the Epstein Theatre in Liverpool before it shut down.
Great place, wasn't it?
Tragically. And whoever watches this, whoever closed that place down,
sort it out.
around the bend.
Absolutely.
So, just sort it out.
It's an amazing space. And what they've done is they've crushed the arts where you've got that intermediate space
Yes.
for people. Irish Annie's started there. By the way, if it wasn't for the Epstein, Irish Annie's wouldn't have existed. That's how important the Epstein is. So anyway, we did it there and it just went crazy. The next time we did 8 shows, then we did 16, and then it just went, they said, look, this has got to go on a nationwide tour. And we did 38 dates like this year. We just finished a couple of weeks ago in the Olympia. And I mean, Rick's here in the room. It was phenomenal.
We had a ball, didn't we?
It was phenomenal. I can't describe. Sometimes I took myself back to sitting in the shed and thinking, how the hell did this happen?
Or even when you were with the whiskey, thinking,
Sitting there, the whiskey,
made a
thinking,
mistake.
I've made a big mistake here. I'm going to have to go back and hold my hands up and said, this hasn't worked. But I stuck with it. I have a thing up in my shed. I said, there are those who think about making things happen and those that make them happen. And I've always stuck by that. Anyone out there who's a budding singer, writer, playwright, stick at it. It will, if it's good enough. Colin McEwen was mentioned before, a wonderful writer, and he said something on a thing I was invited to about writers. If it's good enough, it will work. So, you have to work at it if it's good enough. So Irish Annie's, that's what happened with it. And we worked along with the producer, Bill Elms, who helped me along the way. He'd be a good subject for the Scouse House. He's done so much, and then Ricky, and we had wonderful actors who played the parts along the way. What happened was each character is based on a real person who I've met, who drank in the pubs in Liverpool and Ireland.
Yeah.
So they're all real. There's a guy called Noel St. John Smythe, who's a retired aristocratic actor, who used to drink in this pub in Ireland, have 8 pints, quote Shakespeare and James Joyce and William Butler Yeats, and then go asleep on the bar, wake up, have another 8 pints, have a butty, and do the same. And the whole pub would stop, and he would say, "May I have the floor?" And they'd all go, "Oh, wait, Noel's going to speak." And he'd go, "In the words of William Butler Yeats, we have no strangers here, only friends." And he used to go, "I thank you. I thank you all." And everyone go, "Eh."
How do you think it'd go down in the Lobster, then?
Probably go down a stone. "I thank you, all lads. Get on Noel there, lads.
Do you know any Macbeth? So then you mentioned obviously you took it as you must over to Ireland as well.
Yeah.
Whereabouts was
We
the
went
Irish
to
performance?
Dublin, Cork, Kerry, Galway, Drogheda, Tallaght. I mean, I don't really swear much, and neither does Rick, but I'll have to here. The opening night in Dublin, I was shitting myself. I said to him, "I am shitting myself here. I think I've made a mistake." Because
How many people are we talking?
sold out
Yeah.
in the Liberty Theatre in Dublin, and Rick said it'll be fine. Don't worry, it's a great show. Because I do a Dublin accent in it, you see. So I was thinking, am I going to get stoned when I walk out here? You know what I mean? They didn't, because I'd written certain lines in it to get over that.
Right.
To do it we're doing Irish accents, stuff like that. And they absolutely loved it. They took us to heart. And at the end of the show, the whole theatre was on its feet. And we got a 2 or 3 minute standing ovation. And then it was just like Ricky said, it was like Glastonbury. We do the encore where we do a load of Irish songs, and a song I'd written is the last song called The Irish in the Green. Well, we thought they were going to march on they were out marching, they were ready.
Yeah.
Right. It was mad.
And you organised, in terms of Ricky, you organised a little surprise for him on one of the performances. His on-screen wife of 2 productions at least.
Sue Johnson, yeah. I'd spoke to Sue many times before, and she wanted to see the show, and I said, "I've got a better idea. Why don't you make a surprise appearance at Stockport?" And we were sold out. So what I did was I said, "Look, normally Ricky gets up, comes in the pub, has a pint, and then I sort of introduce his little bit about telling the stories, and then he regales the audience for 20 minutes with different stories. Could be a different story every night, by the way. We just let him do it, and it's brilliant, and they love it. And then I interrupt them. We both sing The Fields of Athenry together, and then we have a pump on stage with Guinness. So he has a pint of Guinness then sitting on stage eating a packet of crisps. So I just went up to him before he'd done his stuff and said, "Oh, by the way, we don't want to hear any of your stories tonight." And he looked at me and went, "What?" And I said, "We don't want to hear any of your stories." And I said, "You haven't got a clue what's going on." He said, "What are you doing, lad?" I said, "Your wife's been looking for you. You're in trouble." And he went, "Who?" And I said, "Here she is now." And Sue walked on, and the place just went crazy.
So
Crazy. It was lovely. It was a lovely moment. She's a lovely person.
yeah.
She'd be great on this. She'd be great on the Scouse.
I'll have to get Sue's number off you, Asa, at
yeah.
the end, and we'll see Sue for season 3, hopefully. But in terms of you mentioned the follow up then, and a bit of an exclusive. What's coming next?
Well, Irish Annie's is coming back. It's back next year, a little bit later on another tour, and we're just working on little aspects of that because me and Rick work together on a little new nuances to make it fresh and stuff like that. But what I started doing was I started writing a story about what people's concept of success is and celebrity, because I think it's been warped. I think now we've got no concept of celebrity anymore because we think celebrities are people who sit in wine bars in Cheshire drinking champagne, talking shit, basically, and who are married to people with millions and squillions of pounds, living in big mansions. And our younger generation think, oh, they're successful people, they're celebrities. They're not. They have zero talent whatsoever. And so what's happened is a whole generation of people don't know what talent is anymore, or why the successful talented people are some of the people we've mentioned from Liverpool, Jimmy McGovern and Ricky as well, and people like that who've worked hard. They're celebrities and they earn that right to be called. So this story follows a young girl who, because of a bad situation in life, has ended up working in a supermarket. She's got 3 kids, but she's a very gifted country singer. And it's about her journey where she finds out what success in life actually is. So it could be, you see a fella sweeping the streets, you might look at him and think, look at him. But that man's got dignity in his work, could go home to a nice house with a nice family. In my opinion, that man's a success. Mm-hmm. So it's how do we view success and celebrity? So that's what the story is about.
In terms of successful Scousers then, I mean, I personally, I always loved seeing people who sounded like me, who was from, I knew they were sort of from the same place as me, doing really well, whether it was in sports, you know. I mean, we've had, just pick a random example, Katarina Johnson-Thompson doing obviously really well in the athletics.
Yeah.
But then we think about even acting. You know, we've got now Stephen Graham, Jodie Comer.
Brilliant.
Are the people like it, certainly in from that area of showbiz that you'd really like want to work with, or that you see like you're just proud to see do well?
Yeah, I'm very proud to see anyone from Liverpool doing well, because I'm so proud to be from this city. I always say we only have a catchment area of 12 miles, this city, and then we go hit St. Helens or we hit over the water. So
you don't count St. Helens as a Scousers?
Well, no, because they're not, are they? They're Lancashire, aren't they? You know what I mean? They're nice people, by the way. I love people from St. Helens. We did the show up there. But I'm just talking about the fact that it's unusual that this little tiny place has produced so much talent, writers, poets, singers, sports people. I don't know what it is about Liverpool. And so wherever I go in the world, I'm extremely proud to say I'm from this city.
Well, that seems a perfect way, what you said there about Liverpool, to bring things to a close. On the Scouse House, Asa, towards the end of the episode, we always have an opportunity for our guests to put in your favourites, your top 3 Scousers. Now, you've had a little bit of thinking time on this. We've had
it's a tough one, Rick.
We've ratified them. They've went through the committee. Producer Steve has looked at them too, and into the Scouse House Hall of Fame. Firstly, Asa goes.
Well, this is a bit of an odd one, this, and the only reason I'm doing this is because this person obviously means a lot to me, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be in it. I would have to say my old fella.
Yeah.
And the reason is because my dad, Peter Murphy, he's got dementia now, my dad, and he's non-verbal now, and we've lost him in that way. But he was like a solid right throughout our life with all the lads and all that. A hard-working man, a joiner, get up 6 o'clock in the morning, be home at 6, 7 every night, doing foreigners of a weekends, as we called them, going out doing other work and all that. And obviously instilled in every one of us a hard work ethic, a respect for people as well. So for the working class man,
Yeah.
and I count that for every working class man in Liverpool, I'd say him.
So I'm gonna make a counter offer here. Can we have Scouse dads?
Scouse dads. That's what I'm talking about. Working class Scouse dads.
It's done.
You know what I mean?
It's done.
Lovely, yeah.
Who else is going into Scouse House?
Ricky Tomo, I'd have to...
Ricky Tom.
Yeah, I'd have to put him in, because not just because he's here, but because of what he's done for me career-wise since I started off. I mentioned, ringing me up saying you're doing top of the bill at the Liverpool Empire.
And there's this crazy because you presumably like myself watched them back in the day.
Yeah, and obviously, yeah. But then that changed because we became best mates, and we socialised together and we have a good time, and then but he's done things like that for me. And when I got to the Liverpool Empire, there was a star on the dressing room one with my name on it. Now, I'm just a scruff from Kirkdale, and I was top of the bill at the Liverpool Empire. I couldn't believe it, and I walked out, and it was sold out, and it was like, bloody hell,
We touched on Ricky's age there, and let's not make too big a deal about 84, and
he's 105 actually. He just lies.
72-year-old Ricky. No, but seriously, 84 still doing what he's doing.
Well, I'll answer for him, because I'll tell you what it is. It's his zest for life. It's the fact that we've talked about retirement, and he says, retirement my arse, because what does that mean, really? Sitting in the house and watching Judge Judy or, Repair Shop all day. And they're great shows, by the way. But, do you know what I mean?
He wants an invite.
Yeah, don't sort of dumb yourself down just because of age. Age is a number, and your vitality. And with Ricky, he's kept that going, that energy. I'm telling you, he did all 38 shows on this tour, never moaned about anything. It wasn't like any complaints about where we went or any of the details. Where do you want me, lad? Give me... His rider was a cup of tea, by the way. There was a few other things, but I can't mention them.
What brand?
There's a few other riders, but I've got a gag order on them.
Okay, yeah.
But Ricky, because of what he's brought to the city, I was very honoured to be there when he was made a citizen of he's Freeman of the city, and I was very proud of him.
He's now in the Scouse House Hall of Fame, which is even more prestigious.
Unbelievable.
To be honest with you, and then you've got a space for a third entrance. If you
Willie Russell.
Willie Russell.
And the reason there's between Willie Russell and Brian McGann. Brian McGann is a writer, but he's from over the water. But I'm only mentioning him because when I started off and I wanted to be a writer as well as a performer, I didn't know what to do, so I went to see all these shows. Me and Rick's favourite show of all time is Les Mis. So we went to see that. I've been to that loads of times. Then I went to see Blood Brothers, and I was like, goodness me, this is amazing. How do you take someone on an emotional journey like that? If you don't cry in that show or laugh, you haven't got a heart or you haven't got a pulse. So I knew that when I wrote Irish Annies, I had to take people on that journey, and that's exactly what we did. Irish Annies takes people on a journey from laughter to tears, because there's moments where we examine things like alcoholism. And it takes you to the depths of, it's very funny seeing someone drunk, but the reality of it is it destroys careers and it destroys lives and it takes families away from people. And Noel St. John Smythe, that's the story. You get to the root of how this man ended up as this alcoholic stuck at the end of a bar. So Willie Russell, for me, produced something that was so wonderful that I would have to say him.
Asa, it's been an absolute pleasure. We should very briefly just touch on any more books coming out down the track, or is it just when the inspiration?
No, I've got a few. Rickie's written a children's book as well, and he's just finished his. And I wrote The Monkey with No Bum. I wrote one called Boing Meow, which is about a cat, and then I wrote one called The Adventures of Vinegar Jim, which was a small, like a Roald Dahl book, like 150 pages. That did very well. And I'm now following up The Monkey with No Bum with 2 other books called The Ant That Found His Talent and The Pig That Kept Her Promise. And they're all stories for kids to get a little moral sort of story in their lives about the importance of keeping your word, and also The Ant That Found His Talent, that everyone has a talent. You just got to find it.
Yeah. Well, as I said just a moment ago, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, sir.
Yeah, you too as well.
Thank
Yeah,
you very much for
I've
coming
really
down,
enjoyed
mate.
it.
And if anyone wants to catch the Irish Annies and the subsequent shows, make sure to follow Asa.
Yeah.
Online, Instagram,
And IrishAnnies.com.
IrishAnnies.com. It's all there. And thanks, Ricky, as well, because clearly you've been in the
Yeah, it's been great.
Boss. Scouse House. Take care, guys.